he's holy. If some maniac on the street behaving like he did but wasn't a clever scientist, we would have put him in an insane asylum and locked him in prison. Or an artist, you know. Oh, they're artistic. They're all maniacs. They're jumping on other people's wives. They're harming. They're crazy. They have mental breakdown. They go berserk. Oh, that's because they're artists. Ridiculous. You are always joyful. So when you arise from your meditation, you feel liberated instead of uncertain and full of doubts and conflicts. You experience inner peace. You always experience you always experience a happy, joyful vibration. I mean, hear the words literally, please. You know, in fact, you continuously experience tremendous pleasure. Now the pleasure of chocolate is nothing to you. What you can now experience with your mind is super. It's like another realm, another dimension. And when your senses do come into contact with their objects, of course, you experience bliss then too. But that's the only way we can get pleasure. Whereas now your mind is always this way. And so when you eat the cake, it's like even more bliss. But you don't rely on the cake anymore to get the bliss. That's the point, because we've learned to access our own capacity for it, which is within our own consciousness all the time. You hardly ever notice whether it's night or day. Actually, even now, you know this. You have samsaric happiness. You have a similar kind of experience. You dance and drink all night, intoxicated with the pleasure. Time just flies. Oh, wow, it's morning already. Well, this is what happens when you're intoxicated with the blissful experience of samadhi. And of course, this shows that time is not fixed from the outside, made up by the mind. Your body feels so light. When you're out of meditation, the heavy energy of your body vanishes. They all say this. There's something, your body feels like a brand new body. You feel so light, almost as if you could fly, almost as if you had no body at all. And they say more, Lama doesn't say it, but you hear it in other texts, that there's something that the body feels infinitely flexible. You can sit cross-legged for hours and hours with absolutely no pain. Your body feels like a feather because your subtler physical energies are fundamentally changed because your mind is now clear, and that impacts upon everything else. Your sleep is like meditation. Lama Tsongkhapa says that because you've developed such clarity in your concentration meditation, even in your dreams, your experiences of the superstitions, you know, your conceptions about the five sense objects will be much lighter. Your sleep will be like meditation. You develop clairvoyance. Lama Tsongkhapa says that you will develop clairvoyance. According to the Abhidharma teachings, or the literature in India, there are two kinds of clairvoyance. One is what we already understand. We have it. It's called intuition. An untrained sense that we all have to some extent. You know, you might suddenly feel strongly, without any logical proof, that something has happened to your dear friend back home. We all know this. We have this. The other can be gained by training the mind in meditation, as we are discussing here. You're able to see long distances as well as other people, including their minds. At first, your experiences seem a bit like a dream, but the more your concentration develops, the more clearly you can see, just as you would if you were there in person. This kind of clairvoyance is not imagining something. It's real, in the present, not a fantasy. Normally, with your deluded thoughts, you create images of your boyfriend in your mind when he's not there. And it's almost as if he's real. But when it's clairvoyance, you literally see your boyfriend. Again, all I can say is that's insanity if we think the mind is the brain. So we have to deduce here, whenever we think that this person, either of these people over these centuries, have been completely, absolutely mentally ill, and it's possible, and are making things up. We have to find out. That's the point. We have to find out. We have to find out if Einstein's speaking the truth. So lots of people have, so it gives us confidence. Well, lots of people have also done this, but we don't get any confidence from it because we don't call it proof. We don't call it empirical. We just say it's these religious idiots making things up. So that's our arrogance, you know, not even to consider their experiences. And that's why these communications and conferences these last 30 years between the Dalai Lama and all the Tibetan Buddhist scholars and yogis meeting with the best brains in the West. These people in the West, many are not very open-minded. I remember one conference in New York, a whole bunch of 500 of the scientists wrote a letter saying, how dare we invite the Dalai Lama, like it's making it like religion, it's like talking about the flat earth. They all complain, you know. But many scientists, their work, their experiences, their findings have been fundamentally changed with contact, opening them up to this whole other, you know, reality, what really is consciousness. So there are lots of people who are seriously involved in this. in the science, which is marvellous, marvellous. Much of the stuff of neuroplasticity is coming from experiments on the brains of meditators. That'll do. Okay. Any questions from that? Yeah.
When I heard the results that Yami said about the Singapore meditation, it sounded to me like the mind gets so sharp that insight, the stage of insight meditation, reaching the union is should be.
Yeah, let's say it again. The what?
The stage of insight meditation and reaching union between the two should be very short. Is
that's right.
Another delusion of mind?
No, it's true. They say, I mean, it's still going to take a long time. Many, even lifetimes of meditating at a subtle level. No question, because that's how far we have to go. Even when we have got concentration, it's only just the beginning. But but still, nevertheless, they still say, if you can realise, first your mind's so crystal clear you can count every atom, and secondly, the crucial one is that your mind is so subdued that it's effortlessly easy to hear a delusion and work with it and shift it. Whereas the dramas, the emotional dramas we have, because there's no control. So in comparison with not having concentration, it's speedy. Nevertheless, if you read, you look at how much meditating you have to do. That's where Tantra comes in, because that's when it becomes speedy. Yes, no question. And that's why Lama says, Mahamudra, using the mind, because classic two modes. Okay, the classic, in our tradition, the classic use of the two modes of meditation, you would get in the Tibetan tradition, you would use as your object of focus an image of the Buddha. Okay? And then, and that would be the focus, and that would be the object, and then you develop concentration using that. Then when you've got concentration, you'd use it in all kinds of different scenarios. But here, if you want to do meditation, insight meditation, the second one on emptiness, then you've heard the teachings. You listen to all your teachings on, you've done your debating on dependent arising. You've got all the information clear in your mind, like the 1 + 1 is 2. All the information there clear. You've thought about it. You've analysed it. You've debated on it. It's really deep inside you. Now you go home. Now you get whatever concentration level you've got. And now you go to the second mode, and you take your teachings on dependent arising, and you do the analysis, and that gradually triggers an insight into emptiness. That's the classic two. But here, it's exactly the same. But the difference in Mahamudra is the object is not the Buddha to get concentration, it's your own consciousness itself. And Lama's saying all the time in the book, because mind itself is so powerful, this non-conceptual capacity for cognition at this subtle level, because it is so powerful, and even just experiencing the clarity of consciousness, because it's so powerful, it can even give an experience almost like non-duality. It's so much speedier to realise. So when you do the insight, and I'm going to go to that piece in a minute, I haven't added that piece yet. When you do the insight part, it's incredibly subtle, and it's very sophisticated, and it's easier to get an experience of emptiness than in the traditional one. Yeah.
Beside concentration.
Can't quite hear.
Beside concentration, don't you need also absorption?
That is what concentration is. It is absorption. The state of subtle concentration, when you've achieved it, is utter subtle absorption. It is that, but it's not kind of disappearing. It's sharp as a needle, crystal clear, that absorption. Do you understand? It's not sinking into something and just like asleep. It's super, like you're saying. That's the character of your mind, but effortlessly focused, utterly absorbed without distraction on the object, whatever it might be, but super sharp, super awake, super subtle. That is what they mean by absorption.
But still, you need absorb the concentration and absorption.
I don't know what you see. In different traditions, they all use different words. So clearly, you come from the Dzogchen. So I don't know what you mean by that. So why don't you explain what you understand by absorption? Because it's not what I'm saying. So what do you mean? Explain it.
Concentration is being extremely present.
Is it? Is that your teachings, is it, from your teachers?
No,
This is your words.
my words.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that, present. I don't know what you mean.
In
Are we talking in meditation or in daily life?
no, in meditation.
Huh?
In meditation.
So you mean single point of concentration, the way you understand it, is called being present.
No, no.
What are you saying then?
It's
Please.
also.
What do you mean then?
Presence
Okay,
is
explain.
part of it.
Huh?
Presence is
What do you mean by present, darling? What do you mean by
being
that?
focused totally on the present moment also.
Is that from your teachings or is that your words?
My words.
Well, then don't use your words. Use your teacher's words, please. Otherwise, we make up our own trips, and that's what we all do, and it's really rude. Please tell me your teacher's words. Do you have a teacher? No.
I do.
Well, then please tell me their words.
I have,
I want their words, please. Give me your teacher's words.
I don't want to misinterpret.
So you can't say them.
She has her own experience. That's what it's all about.
I'm
Okay.
talking about.
Abraham, thank you very much. You're very nice to stick your nose in, but it's not true. We're discussing theories here, and we're discussing Buddha's teachings according to different traditions.
You're deluded.
Okay, I'm deluded. I'm very sorry about that. Forgive me, Abraham. Go on, darling.
In some way, I agree with.
Never mind. So tell me what you're describing here.
I can more describe my own experience.
Okay, that's fine. So we don't do that. That's too private. We don't want your private
Right.
experience. Thank you very much. That's private.
Right.
Right, okay. Thank you. So we'll leave it like that. I'm describing Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings here and the Panchen Lama based on the teachings I've heard from the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe and my teachings. That's all I can do, Abraham, and if I'm deluded, you have to forgive me. I'm really, really sorry,
You
darling.
never talk about your own experience.
Thank you, Abraham. We're discussing Buddha's teachings here, not my experience. That's very arrogant.
But you're sitting there in the place of the Buddha.
Abraham, thank you.
So
Abraham, that's your view. This is not what's happening in this room. I don't want to hear your personal experience. I'd rather hear the instructions from the holy beings whom I'm trying to replicate.
You maintain this divide, this kind of hierarchy in the Tibetan Buddhist system, which resulted in the invasion of Tibet.
Oh gosh, that's a big oh, my goodness.
Because of its karmic ramifications.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, Abraham. You're very kind. Thank you for your commentary. What's the question?
When you speak here about Mahamudra, you speak of meditation, you speak about insight. Is there any role from compassion or bodhicitta in this practice?
In what practice?
In this practice of Mahamudra?
We're talking about two modes of meditation. We're talking about concentration, and now we're talking about insight into emptiness. The discussion here is not compassion. Nothing to do with it, it's wisdom. You can't confuse them. Shut up, I'm shocked that you asked that. What do you mean? We're discussing two modes of meditation, concentration and insight. It's called wisdom wing. It's the wisdom teachings. It's the wisdom teachings. Compassion teachings is something else, but they have to come together. But you can't mix them up. If you're concentrating on emptiness, you can't at the same time be concentrating on compassion. You'll go nuts. You've got to do each job at a different... You know, if you're trying to heal my hand, you're not healing my foot at the same time. So you focus on the job at hand. Do you understand? Huh? Or not? If you don't, just say no.
No.
You don't.
As we spoke about the stages, in order to achieve
Stages of what?
the stages in order to cultivate the meditation of Mahamudra, which is the union of the subjective clear light and the objective clear light. So when we spoke of this...
That's not how they talk in Mahamudra Sutra teachings. You're discussing something else. That's not the way they talk in the Mahamudra, not the Courtin Lama Yeshe's commentary. We're talking the two modes of meditation, really simple. Concentration first, and then based on, with your concentration, you then go to the second part, and I haven't discussed that part yet, that's where you're developing insight into emptiness. That's it. So what's your question? Based on that, what's your question?
Based on that,
So why do you say, is there compassion in it? Why do you say that? What do you mean?
According to what... so I put it into... According to what I heard, and I compared it to the teaching we heard on Thursday evening, then we want to have some kind of union of not only realize the clarity aspect of the mind, but also the emptiness aspect of the mind.
That's Mahamudra, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That's not compassion. Nothing to do with compassion discussion. Why do you bring it in? Well, I'm trying to get at what the question means. Is there compassion in Mahamudra, you said?
Should we cultivate compassion in order to be able to practice this too?
What do you think? What do you think? We're talking the whole Buddhist path here. What would you think?
I think we do, but I don't know.
How would it help? Okay. You think we do. What do you mean, you think we do?
You ask what I think, so I say I think we
Yeah.
do, we should.
So if you're a Mahayana practitioner, and if Mahamudra is in the Mahayana tradition, and if you get a high Yoga Tantra initiation, usually before you get the teachings, is that not assumed? Is not bodhicitta even assumed then?
Mhm.
The motivation for doing it, isn't it?
Mhm.
That goes without saying, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Okay, it's assumed, isn't it? Okay, there's your answer. No?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Just a small question.
Yes, please.
What is the word used for absorption in your teaching?
Tell me what. Okay, you tell me first what you mean by the word absorb. Is it something you've made up, or is it from the Buddhist teachings? First, let me know that. Which is it? Where'd you get it from?
Didn't make it up.
Where'd you get it from? Buddhist books, Buddhist teachings.
It's teaching.
Good. Okay. So, what do you think absorption is? Tell me.
I will say in a simple word.
You please say. I need simple. Thank you.
Okay. I concentrate and then I let it go. I just let it.
Okay, so concentration is a state. Thank you. When you've got concentration, that is a state of absorption. By definition, they're synonymous.
Not for me.
Excuse me, when you've achieved it, I said.
Yeah. Okay.
We're talking the end result.
Okay.
When you've got
Yes.
single point of concentration, the 9th stage will take you several years up in the mountains. If you do it seriously, your mind necessarily, by definition, will be absorbed. That's all the point.
Yeah.
So the end result of it is absorption, obviously.
But you use the word absorption in your teaching.
Well, have you heard me? It's up to you to decide. Don't worry about it. Use the word concentration instead. They're synonymous.
Okay.
Sweetheart, I'll say it to make you happy though. Yes, absorption. Okay?
Can I ask something?
Yes, please ask a question. Where are you? Yeah.
What's the difference between insight
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
meditation and analytical meditation?
Yeah, insight is what you do with the concentration to get wisdom.
Yeah, and analytical meditation?
No, that's one example. That's one example of a type of insight meditation.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other? Well, before we can carry on, any other questions on what I've discussed so far, which is already lots? Any questions? Any questions so far? No. Yes,
Can I
please.
ask a
Yes,
question
ma'am.
about the karma?
No, we're not just on that topic here for now. Well, no, actually, maybe it's a good. Well, there's so many directions we need to go in before we finish today. Let me think about it. Let me think about it for a second. What we have to talk about. I've got to get to the second part of the Mahamudra meditation. Maybe we'll do that later then. Let's talk more the nuts and bolts. Okay, ask a question about karma.
Okay, if there is karma and then something happened in past life, then I relive it now in some way.
If you practiced piano yesterday, you'll be able to practice piano today. That's karma. So the question is?
Or no, I'm talking about negative karma cycles.
So am I. So
Okay.
then, what's your question?
How do I make sure in my next life the cycle will not?
What do you think? How will you make sure that you don't play the wrong notes on the piano? What will you do?
Practice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing mystical. Is it not obvious? Is it not obvious when you say it that way?
Yeah.
See, that's why I use silly, ordinary examples, because we have all these mystical ideas about it. The whole point of the Buddhist practice is it's a natural law like botany. If you don't know botany, you'll make a mess in your garden, won't you? Would you agree? So how do you make sure you don't grow the wrong vegetables in your garden? How do you make sure you don't grow poison things in the future? How would you make sure you learn to do that? What would you do now? What would you do now? To make sure you got the things in your garden that you want in the future. By definition, it's always the future, isn't it? Would you agree? What would you do to make sure you have the right things in your garden in the future?
I will learn about.
Thank you very much. It's very simple. And you learn to know the things you should pull out and the things you should grow, isn't it? It's not mystical, is it? That's morality and ethics. Do you hear me? That is the answer, sweetheart. Because Buddha says it's a natural law. It's not like doing what someone said. It's not like just being a good girl. You learn to know the meaning of what morality is. Don't kill, don't lie. Starting point, don't kill, don't lie, don't steal. By doing, at least refraining from those, the grossest actions we tend to do, that will prevent you from being born in the lower realms. That will prevent you from having a tendency to wake up in the next life as a human and kill. That will prevent you from being killed, and that will prevent you from having a crummy environment. That's one example of one action. That's the Buddha's teachings. That's the answer to the question. You learn Buddha's botany. Do you see? Do you see? You don't look like you do. Do you hear me?
I do.
You sure?
Yeah.
Thank you, Young. Okay, yes. Yeah.
Another question about karma
Yes.
and motivation.
I can't hear you, sweetheart.
Karma and motivation.
Give me a question.
Okay, so if I steal today,
Yes.
it might be stolen from in the
If you practice the piano today, if you can play it today, it shows you've done it before. Then?
I don't want it to be my motivation to act right.
What don't you want what motivation to be?
Karma.
What do you mean you don't want? You need to have that first. That's junior school. Don't leap ahead of yourself. You've got to start. That's what renunciation is.
But
Listen, that's the question. You don't understand if you say that. It's like if you don't realise the suffering that cigarettes causes you, if you don't realise that you're suffering from cigarettes, if you don't say, God, you know what, I'm sick of this suffering, then you won't change, will you? That's called knowing that you're suffering and you're sick of it. And the first level is you've got to stop killing because you can't bear the thought of future suffering. That's a really common view. We think, oh, that sounds very selfish. I want it to be all holy. That's too advanced, baby. Compassion is way too advanced. You cannot have compassion for others and have that as your basis genuinely until you've got some compassion for yourself, as we're calling it, which is, oh my God, I do not want future suffering because I'm sick of suffering. That's why you will stop killing, lying, stealing. That's the first level. You get that deep in your bones, then you can grow it to genuinely having compassion. But you've got to have you can still do it with the fundamental. If you're a Mahayanist, you start your day with bodhicitta, but you've got to realise the experience of the suffering and want for yourself to go beyond it. That's crucial. Otherwise you can't have compassion for other people. Do you hear that or not?
I hear that, but I don't quite understand.
Which bit don't you understand? Speak it out. Use ordinary examples. So which bit don't you understand,
I
sweetheart?
don't understand the connection to karma in what you said.
What do you mean by karma? Well, just so I hear that you're hearing, we're all talking on the same page here.
Yeah, that if you steal today, you'll be stolen from.
If you give money today, you will receive in the future. Yeah, if you kill today, that's right. Or every action we do, every seed we plant will bring fruits. Right. Yeah, so the law of botany tells you that certain things you should pull out from your ground, which I call weeds, speaking simply, and then things you should grow. If you want a decent garden in the future, roses and trees and vegetables, you need to be able to identify what seeds to plant, don't you? Do you accept that? And you need to know which seeds not to plant and which seeds, in fact, to pull out. Do you agree with that? And that's knowledge, isn't it? Like knowledge of the law of botany. Well, we're talking the same here about the knowledge of the law of karma. So you have to identify the things that you should want to not do because they will cause you future suffering. And you have to identify the things you should want to do because they will cause you future happiness. Can you hear that? You need to learn that. That's the nature. So by definition, a virtuous action is one that will bring you future happiness. A negative action, by definition, is one that will bring you future suffering. So learning about karma, it's about you. You can't avoid it. So surely you'd be delighted to discover that if you smoke cigarettes, you might get cancer, and then so you know that you have to stop smoking cigarettes. Why would you stop smoking cigarettes? Why? Why would you stop smoking cigarettes?
My true answer is
From the logic we're using here, why would you stop smoking cigarettes according to this logic we're using? Your doctor says to you, darling, you might get cancer in 20 years. So why would you stop smoking cigarettes?
because I want to live, because I want to be healthy.
Because you don't want cancer. Is that normal? Would a person accuse you of being selfish? Oh, you're so selfish. You should not want to smoke cigarettes because you want to help others. Excuse me, one step at a time. Can you hear me now or not? Can you hear me now? But we all have this holy idea that, oh, I don't want that to be my motivation. That sounds selfish. Well, please excuse me. That's the nature of what karma is. And until you realise that, we will never change. Are you kind of hearing me? Yeah, how can you be advanced before you're advanced? You've got to first realise that if you do negative actions, you will suffer, and you know you don't want suffering. You've got to be energised by that. That's got to be the thing that will demand that you watch like a hawk everything you say and do, because you know what? I don't want suffering. This is actually really advanced, highly evolved spiritual practitioner. So forget compassion. Are you hearing me? Thank you. A bit better now.
I love that.
Good, darling. I'm so happy. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Me?
Yes, you, sweetheart.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Are there any prerequisites for practicing Mahamudra or any other meditation?
Are there any prerequisites? What do you sort of, I mean, of course there would be, but what do you mean by that? Why do you ask
What
it?
I mean exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
is if I as a layman,
If what?
if I as a simple person
Yeah, we're all
want
sit,
to
yeah,
practice
yeah.
Buddhism,
Yes.
spiritual meditation,
yes.
why would I choose this type of meditation or another type of meditation or this kind of studies or other kind of studies? That's what I mean by prerequisites.
I understand, okay. So what have you been hearing in this room all day yesterday? The goal of being a Buddhist. What is, in this framework we're describing here today in this room, what have you been hearing? Anything that would answer that might answer that question for you?
And suffering and get happy.
Does that sound nice? Sound useful? Well then it's up to you to decide. So you're here checking out this particular approach, and then it's up to, you're the boss because there's lots of approaches in the world, then you're the one listening to this one. So the prerequisites are, if you listen to this approach and think this is reasonable, I might give it a go. So the prerequisite is wanting to end suffering and develop happiness, not to mention benefit others. And why you would choose it is because you've decided it's useful. So it's up to you to decide if this is the method that you'd like to follow.
No prerequisites. Thank you.
The prerequisite is you want to stop suffering and get happy. That's what I said. You said those words, and that's a perfect one. That's the prerequisite. You want to stop suffering and get happy. If you want to get rich, you wouldn't do this. Don't bother. Don't waste your money or your time. If you want to become, if you want to go to heaven to be with Jesus Christ, you wouldn't do this method. If you want to go to paradise and have 72 virgins, or whatever the Muslims say, you wouldn't do this. So it depends on what you want. If you want to be a tennis player, you wouldn't do this. If you want to get rich, you wouldn't do this. So the prerequisite is you're wishing to be free of suffering and get happy. That's the answer. And you said it perfectly by saying what you just said. That's the prerequisite. So then if any course of any study, then the prerequisite is you first want it, and then you enter in at the beginning and go slowly. Am I missing something in your question? Please forgive me.
What is grade 1?
Grade 1 is wanting it first. Then the first instruction, junior school, entry level, grade 1, don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, control your body and speech, and refrain from sowing negative seeds in your mind that would ripen in the future as you're suffering. That's grade 1. That's junior school. Abide by the laws of karma. Then high school is, now you've subdued your body and speech to some degree, you're able to begin to notice your crazy mind. And the Buddha would say that's the source of why we do crazy things. And that's the source of our suffering now and in the future. So now you can learn to get concentration meditation, and you can learn to look into your mind and unpack and unravel the contents, and to begin to identify the delusions from the virtues. That's the next stage. And then from this you get incredible renunciation, an understanding of suffering and its causes. And now you can go to university, and you can then begin to develop compassion to help others. And then you enter into Vajrayana, and you go speedy towards the result. That's the essence of everything I've been saying in this room. Does it make sense at all?
I'm satisfied.
Good. Thank you so much. Okay, good. All right.
Thank you about your clearness.
Oh, pleasure.
You were so clear and so direct.
Good. I'm happy. Good.
Satisfaction.
No, I know. Indeed. Okay, so good. So now,
Just a last question.
yes, sweetheart. Yes.
About karma.
Yes.
I had two teachers give me a different explanation about karma
Yes.
and impermanence.
Yes.
The first one was that karma, the law of karma, is what implying the impermanent as well. I mean,
Is what? Sorry.
if I experience impermanent in my life,
Experience impermanence.
yeah, it's like I see the tree is changing all
Yes,
the
that's
time
right.
and getting old. It's because I have the knowledge from past experience
What do you mean? What knowledge? About trees? What do you mean?
Of the impermanence of the tree.